It was one of those slow, easy Sundays you get in December, the kind that just sort of melts away. I'd been hanging out all day with my buddy Lisa over in Brookside. We grabbed some lunch, caught a movie, and spent a good while just laughing about all the dumb stuff we used to get up to. As the light started to fade, I figured it was about time I made my way back to my place. Lisa said she could give me a ride, but I told her not to worry about it. I zipped my jacket up against the chill and said, "It's just a quick walk. A little fresh air will do me good." Now, Brookside is one of those small towns where you know just about everybody you pass on the street. Things were real quiet, just the occasional car driving by. I felt perfectly safe, my mind already jumping ahead to what I might scrounge up for dinner. That's when I saw it. A plain white van, the kind companies use for deliveries, just sitting there on the side of the road. It didn't strike me as anything unusual, so I kept on walking without a second thought. But then the van started to move, creeping along right behind me. My first instinct was to think it was nothing, that the driver was probably just lost and looking for a house number. When it kept matching my pace, step for step, a cold, hard knot of fear started to tighten in my gut. I picked up my speed, hoping to get closer to the town center where there'd be more people. The van suddenly pulled up right alongside me, and the driver rolled his window down. "Hey, excuse me, miss," he called out. His voice was calm, too calm. "You think you could give me some directions? I'm trying to find Main Street." I paused for a second, hesitant. Something in his tone felt wrong. It just didn't sit right with me, but I didn't want to be outright rude to the guy. "It's just a couple blocks up that way," I said, pointing but making sure to keep my distance. "Take a left at the next stoplight you see." Before I could even move away, he was out of that van and on me, moving with a speed that shocked me. A knife flashed in his hand. "Get in the van, now," he snarled, his fingers closing around my arm like a vice. I tried to pull myself free, but his grip was absolute, unbreakable. I felt the cold, sharp point of that knife press right against my side. "Don't you make a sound," he warned me, and his eyes were just empty, hard stones. Pure terror washed over me. I wanted to scream my lungs out, but the fear just locked my voice in my throat. He yanked the van's side door open and shoved me inside so hard I stumbled and fell, my body hitting the metal floor with a jarring thud. The door slammed shut behind me, and I heard the lock click into place. It was the most final, terrifying sound I'd ever heard, like a cell door closing for good. The van jerked forward, throwing me against a wall. I scrambled up onto my knees, my eyes struggling to adjust to the dim, awful light. The back of this van was a straight-up nightmare. A heavy-duty metal cage, with bars way too thick to bend, separated me from the front. Rusty chains hung from the walls, clinking together with every bump and turn. All the windows were blocked out with thick, dark blankets, cutting me off from the outside world completely. A big metal toolbox was bolted right to the floor, its lid partly open so I could see the glint of some nasty-looking tools inside. I could barely catch my breath, my lungs seizing up. This wasn't a vehicle, it was a rolling prison. I started pounding on those cage bars with my fists until they ached. "Let me out," I screamed, my voice raw. "Please, you have to let me go." The driver just glanced back at me through the rearview mirror. His face showed nothing, no emotion at all. "No one can hear you," he said, his voice completely flat and empty. "This thing is soundproof." That one word, soundproof, sent a chill straight through my soul. He had done this before. The chains, the cage, it was all set up, planned. I remembered all those scary stories you hear, the warnings about getting into vans with strangers, but they always just felt like made-up tales, something that happened to other people. Now I was the main character in one. I forced myself to try and think straight. Freaking out wasn't going to save me. I had to find a way out. I ran my hands over every inch of that cage, searching for a weak spot, a loose weld, anything. The bars were solid. The padlock on the cage door was huge, the kind you couldn't hope to break without the key. But then I spotted something on the floor. A short, twisted piece of wire. Maybe it fell off one of the chains or out of that toolbox. I snatched it up, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold it. I'd seen lockpicking in movies, but Could I actually do it? I knelt down by the lock and tried to work the wire into the keyhole. "Come on," I begged under my breath, trying to feel for the tumblers. It was useless. The lock wasn't budging. The van hit a pothole and I fell over, the wire skittering away across the floor. I crawled after it, my heart hammering against my ribs. And that's when I saw it, a backpack shoved way under the seat. It wasn't mine. With trembling hands, I reached through the bars and managed to drag it over to me. Inside were some clothes, a half-empty water bottle, and a little notebook. I opened it up, my eyes scanning the handwritten pages. One entry made my blood run cold. Day 3, still no food. He's keeping me here. I don't know how much longer I can last. The words swam in front of my eyes as they filled with tears. There had been someone else before me. Had she been right here, in this same cage? What did he do to her? I kept flipping through the pages, each one another desperate cry for help. The truth hit me like a physical blow. If I didn't get out of here, I would just become another entry in this horrible book. Another name, another story left unfinished. I dug through the backpack again, praying for anything I could use. In a small side pocket, my fingers closed around a little pocket knife. My breath hitched in my throat. It wasn't much, but it was a weapon. It was hope. I quickly slipped it up my sleeve, hiding it from the driver's view. If I got one single chance, I was going to use it. The van slowed down, and I could hear the steady roar of other traffic. We were on a highway now, the engine whining. I tried to keep track of the turns, but with the windows covered, I was completely lost. The driver didn't say a word, just kept his eyes on the road. I wondered who he really was, why he had picked me. Did he know who I was? Or was I just in the wrong place at the worst possible time? Not knowing was its own special kind of torture. I thought about Lisa, my mom and dad, my kid brother. Would they ever even find out what happened to me? I wiped my eyes hard, refusing to let the despair win. I had to keep my head together. Then, a new sound cut through the rumble of the engine, the high, wailing scream of police sirens. My heart leaped into my throat. Someone must have seen him grab me. Someone had called for help. The driver cursed loudly and the van suddenly shot forward, swerving wildly between other cars. I braced myself against the cage, the chains swinging and clanging around me. The sirens got louder, closer. I could see flashes of red and blue light bleeding through a tiny tear in one of the window blankets. Hope surged through me, but so did a fresh wave of fear. What if he decided to kill me before the cops could get to us? I started banging on the cage again, screaming with everything I had left. "Help, I'm in here, I'm in the van." My voice was just a ragged croak, but I didn't stop. If there was even the slimmest chance someone could hear me, I had to try. The van took a sharp, sudden turn, and I was thrown hard against the bars. The driver was panicking now, driving like a madman. The sirens were right on our tail, wouldn't let up. I prayed they wouldn't lose us in the traffic. All of a sudden, the van screeched to a violent, jerking halt. I heard the sound of squealing tires, and then voices yelling, "Police, step out of the vehicle now, hands where we can see them." The driver swore again, his voice shaky this time. He opened his door and got out. Then there was just silence, a heavy, tense quiet. I held my breath, my hand clutching the little knife in my sleeve. The seconds felt like hours. Then someone started working on the back doors. They were locked, but I heard a sharp metallic scraping sound, like they were forcing the lock. The doors burst open, and daylight came flooding in, so bright it blinded me for a second. Police officers were standing there, their weapons drawn. One of them climbed right in, his face stern but his eyes kind. "Are you hurt?" he asked, working on the lock to the cage. I just shook my head, tears streaming down my face now. "No," I finally managed to say. "Thank you. Thank you so much." They helped me out, wrapping a thick blanket around my shoulders. I looked back into that van, its horrible interior fully exposed in the sun. The cage, the chains, the toolbox. It was all real. It wasn't a bad dream I could just wake up from. Outside, I saw the driver on his knees in the road, his hands cuffed behind his back. Police cars were everywhere, their lights still spinning. A paramedic looked me over, but aside from some bruises and a cut on my arm, I was okay, at least on the outside. Down at the police station, they told me what happened. A guy had seen the whole thing go down and actually followed the van, calling 911 the whole time, giving them the license plate and a perfect description. That stranger's bravery is the only reason I'm sitting here today. The driver was a guy named Sean E. Sanders. He had a long history of violence. Turns out he'd been basically living in that van. I'll probably never know why he decided to target me. The cops found that notebook and the backpack. They confirmed it all belonged to another young woman who'd gone missing months before. My finding it actually helped them open a new investigation, maybe finally giving her family some answers. The days after were really tough. I'd wake up in the middle of the night from nightmares. The image of that cage burned into my mind. I'd see a white van on the street and my heart would just start racing. But with a lot of therapy and a lot of support from my family and friends, I slowly started to put the pieces back together. I learned to listen to my gut, to trust that feeling when something just isn't right. That day changed me forever, but it also showed me how one person's courage can change everything. If that witness hadn't gotten involved, I wouldn't be here. I'm so grateful for this second chance, and I'll never ever forget the pure horror of that van, or the hope that finally got me out. I never figured I'd be telling a story like this, but here we are. I'm a 55-year-old woman, living full-time in my van with my dog Max. He's a German Shepherd mix, and he's been my best buddy for the 6 weeks we've been out on the road together. This van life, it's something else. Waking up to a brand new view every morning, living simple, just going where the road takes you. But it's not all sunshine and easy times, especially when you're a woman traveling alone. And nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what went down in Death Valley, California, back in November of 2021. I deparked my van way out in a remote corner of the park, miles from the main road or any other people. The desert just stretched out forever all around me, huge mountains in the distance and a sky so full of stars it didn't seem real. It was peaceful, beautiful even. But the day before, something happened that put me on edge. I'd stopped at a little gas station to fill up, and this man walked over to me. He was wearing these dark sunglasses and a bright white short-sleeved polo shirt. His smile seemed fake, and with those shades on, I couldn't see his eyes at all. He started asking me all these questions about my van and my travel plans, getting a little too close for comfort. "Nice setup you got there," he said, leaning in closer than I liked. "You out here all by yourself?" "Nope. Meeting up with some friends," I lied, trying to keep my voice steady even though my stomach was doing flip-flops. I finished pumping my gas as fast as I could, jumped back in my van and got out of there. In my rearview mirror, I watched him just standing there by his Mitsubishi rental car staring after me. The whole thing left me feeling real uneasy, but I tried to shake it off and just enjoy the solitude. Then, that night right around 4 in the morning, I woke up to these weird noises, a scratching sound, and then the whole van started rocking. My heart immediately jumped into my throat. Next to me, Max was growling, a low, mean rumble I'd never heard from him before. His ears were pinned back and the fur on his neck was standing straight up. I crept over to the window and peeled back the corner of the curtain just enough to peek out. And there it was. Parked right behind me, blocking me in, was that same Mitsubishi. The guy from the gas station had found me. He had followed me all the way out here. A wave of pure panic hit me. I was trapped, absolutely trapped, in the middle of nowhere, with no cell phone signal whatsoever. I scrambled around, locking every single door, my hands shaking so bad I could barely work the latches. Then I heard it. Footsteps crunching on the gravel outside, slow and deliberate. The van rocked again, harder this time, like he was testing the door handles, trying to find a way to get in. Max's barking turned into a full-on ferocious roar, echoing inside the van. I whispered to him, "Good boy, Max. Keep it up. Keep barking." I was praying the noise would scare the guy off. I grabbed my satellite phone, my only real lifeline out here, and started sending out frantic texts to everyone I could think of. Someone is trying to break into my van. I'm in Death Valley, please send help. I even managed to snap a few pictures of his car through the window, catching a part of the license plate in the flash. Every little creak the van made, every shuffle I heard outside, made my chest feel tighter. I kept imagining him finally getting a door open. My mind was racing through every worst-case scenario you could think of. "Open the door!" he shouted suddenly. His voice was slurred, like he'd been drinking or maybe he was on something. I didn't make a sound. I just held on to Max for dear life, praying he'd just give up and leave. The rocking stopped for a minute, and I dared to hope. But then it started again, even more violent than before. I thought about laying on the horn, but I was scared that might just make him angrier, more desperate. The minutes just dragged on, each one feeling like an hour. And then, just like that, I heard a car door slam shut. An engine roared to life. I peeked out again and saw the Mitsubishi's taillights speeding away, disappearing into the complete blackness of the desert night. The relief was instant and overwhelming, but the fear didn't just go away. I knew I couldn't stay there another second. I started the van and drove to a nearby trailhead where I knew a few other campers were parked. Just seeing other people there felt like a huge shield around me. From there, I headed straight to a little restaurant I'd passed earlier, parking way around back where I was out of sight. My hands were still shaking when I walked in. I sent out another round of texts, letting everyone know I was safe but seriously shaken up. Inside, the place smelled like coffee and bacon, and it felt like a little slice of normalcy. I ordered a coffee and slid into a booth, trying to get my breathing back under control. The waitress, a real nice woman probably in her 50s with a kind smile, noticed I was pretty upset. "You look like you've had one heck of a night," she said, topping off my coffee cup. I hesitated for a second, and then the whole story just came pouring out. Last night, this guy, he followed me all the way to my campsite. He tried to break into my van. I've never been so scared in my life. Her eyes got real wide. "Oh, honey, that's awful. Are you okay? Did you call the police?" "No cell service out where I was," I told her. "But I got pictures of his car. I'm gonna report it to the park rangers as soon as I can." "Good," she said, nodding firmly. "You need to tell somebody. We get all sorts of people coming through here, and most of them are perfectly nice. But still, you can't ever be too careful out here." She let me sit there for as long as I needed, and I must have spent hours in that booth, just sipping coffee and trying to calm my nerves. Later on, I used my satellite phone to email the local rangers. I attached the photos and wrote down every single detail I could remember. What the guy looked like, his car, the whole terrifying ordeal. They wrote back pretty quick. They confirmed the car was a rental and said they'd keep all the information on file in case anything else like this happened. I spent the rest of the day just hiding out in my van with all the doors locked, even though the heat was brutal. 94 degrees outside and 92 inside without the air conditioning on. I only got out to walk Max, and I carried my pepper spray and a knife in my hand the whole time, checking every shadow. That experience rattled me to my core, but in a weird way, it also made me feel stronger. I've always been a cautious person, but now I'm hyper-aware of everything around me. I only park in well-lit areas with other people around, and I trust my gut instinct more than ever. If something feels wrong, I'm out of there. Max was the real hero that night. I'm sure his barking is the only thing that saved me, and I owe that dog everything I have. Telling this story isn't easy, but I think it's important. I want other folks living this van life to know about the risks. The road is beautiful, but it can be wild and unpredictable too. You gotta stay alert. You gotta be prepared, and you gotta look out for each other. That's what really keeps us safe. This was all the way back in 1979. Andrea and I were both 15 years old, just a couple of kids living in Huntington Beach, California. We were best friends, did everything together. We told each other everything. Our secrets, our big dreams, everything. We both loved music and trying out new crazy fashion styles. Andrea was one of those people who just made everything brighter. She had this long, dark hair she usually wore in a ponytail, and these amazing blue eyes that were always sparkling with some kind of fun idea. She was always laughing, always cracking jokes, just making everyone around her feel happy. We'd spend our days down at the beach, working on our tans, swimming, building these huge sand castles, and just running from the waves. At night, we'd have sleepovers and stay up way too late talking about boys we liked, stuff going on at school, and what we thought our lives were going to be like. Andrea, she wanted to be a fashion designer more than anything. She was always drawing these pictures of dresses and outfits, her pencil just flying across the page. I remember her showing me her sketches, her face all lit up. "This one's for a big summer party," she'd say, pointing to this drawing of a flowy dress. "And this one, this is for a real fashion show in a big city someday." She was so full of life, man, so full of hope. But then September 3rd, 1979 rolled around and everything just stopped. Andrea didn't show up for school that day. That wasn't like her, not even a little bit. She was never late. We had made plans to meet up after the last bell to go to the mall, maybe try on some clothes and get some ice cream. But when she wasn't waiting for me at our usual spot by the school gates, I got this bad feeling in my stomach. I tried calling her house from a payphone, but it just rang and rang. Her mom was a nurse and worked late shifts a lot, and her dad traveled for business, so it wasn't that weird for her to be home by herself. But she always answered the phone. "Hey, Andrea, where are you?" I said into the receiver, just hoping she'd pick up. Nothing. Just that endless ringing sound. I hung up, and my hands were starting to feel a little shaky. Something felt really off. I was so worried that after school, I decided to just walk over to her house myself. It was only a few blocks away, through this quiet neighborhood with palm trees and perfect green lawns. When I got there, the place felt empty. Her bed was made, her school bag was gone, but her beat-up old car was still sitting right there in the driveway. That's what didn't make any sense. Andrea never went anywhere without telling me first. I knocked on the front door. "Andrea, you in there?" Nothing. I checked the windows, but all the curtains were closed. I ended up just sitting on her front porch steps, waiting, hoping she'd come walking up with some silly story about where she'd been. As the sun started going down, making the whole street look golden, I wrote a quick note. "Andrea, call me the second you get home. I'm getting worried. Emily." I stuck it in the doorframe and finally left, that knot of worry in my stomach pulling tighter and tighter. The next day, the news hit everyone. It felt like a punch right to the gut. They'd found a young girl's body up in the hills near Whittier, which is about an hour's drive from us. It was Andrea. I couldn't breathe. I just sat in my room staring at the wall, trying to make my brain understand the words. How does something like this happen? Who would do this to my friend? Andrea, with her notebook full of drawings and her crazy laugh, was just gone. I couldn't stop seeing her face, hearing her voice in my head. "We're gonna be famous someday, Emily," she'd told me once, grinning like she knew a secret. Now she was gone, and I never even got to say goodbye. The police, they worked fast. They said Andrea had been grabbed while she was walking home from school. Some people had seen a white van in the area, just parked on a side street real close to the school. Later on, they confirmed that 2 men in that van had taken her. They didn't have a lot of details at first, but as the weeks went by, more girls were found. All young women, all killed by the same guys. The news started calling them the toolbox killers because of the tools they used to hurt their victims. Just hearing that name made me feel sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe that kind of evil was real, that it was out there. Andrea was gone, and there was nothing I could do to bring her back. I went to her funeral. I stood there by her grave while her mom just sobbed and sobbed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers from somebody, anybody, but all I could do was cry. I needed to see justice done. I needed those monsters to be caught. It was months later when the police finally arrested 2 men, Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris. They got charged with murdering 5 young women, and Andrea was one of them. During the trial, I heard things I wish I could wipe from my memory forever. They had recorded what they did. They taped the screams, the pleading. The recordings were so awful that the judge wouldn't even let them be played in the courtroom. but they read the transcripts out loud. I sat there on that hard bench, gripping the wood until my knuckles were white, listening to words that described a level of cruelty you can't even imagine. Bittaker and Norris both got sentenced to death, but Norris ended up making a deal. He testified against Bittaker in exchange for getting his sentence changed to life in prison. I went to that trial every single day. I sat in that courtroom and I stared at the men who ended my best friend's life. They didn't look like monsters. They just looked like men. Two guys in suits. One of them, the one who'd worn a baseball cap during the crimes, just sat there. The other one had this little smirk on his face that made me want to scream. I wanted them to see me. I wanted them to see the pain they caused, to understand they didn't just take lives, they shattered entire families. They broke our whole community. The trial showed how they did it. They had fixed up their white van with a bed, chains, and a big toolbox filled with pliers, hammers, and knives. They'd just drive around, looking for young women who were walking by themselves. They'd pull over and offer a ride. If the girl said no, they'd just grab her. Andrea was their second victim. She'd been walking home from school, probably thinking about her latest sketch or our plans for the weekend when they saw her. "Hey, you need a ride?" one of them had called out, according to someone who saw the van but couldn't stop it in time. Andrea, always so polite, probably said no thanks. But they didn't take no for an answer. They forced her into that van, and that was it. She was gone. I can't even let myself imagine the terror she must have felt, trapped in there with them. They took her out to some remote spot and they tortured her for hours before they finally killed her. The details are too horrible to say out loud, but they've stayed with me. They're burned into my brain. After Andrea, they killed 3 more girls, each one taken in that same white van. The cops finally caught them because someone saw a van that matched the description near where they found another one of the girls. When they searched it, they found blood, hair, and the tools that linked them to all of it. Norris was the first to crack and confess. He told them things only the killer would know. He tried to say that Bittaker was the main one, that he'd been forced into it, but I didn't believe that for a second. They were both guilty. Both of them were responsible for all that pain. Even with them locked away, the pain didn't go away. Andrea being gone left this huge hole in my life, in the whole world. I'd walk past her house and expect to see her waving from the porch, but it was always just empty. I kept all her sketches. I put them in a box. I couldn't bring myself to look at them, but I could never ever throw them away. I still think about that white van all the time. I wonder how many other lives it ruined, how many other families it destroyed. It turned into this symbol of pure evil for me, a permanent reminder that danger can be anywhere, even on a sunny day, on a quiet street in your own hometown.